Welcome. We are in Ambleside in the Lake District. It's stunning when there's not mist and rain, but it is, it's amazing. Why are we here, you wonder? We're here for the National Hill Climb Championships, which this year go up the iconic, amazingly named Struggle Climb. Hill climb's amazing because literally every gram counts and every gram matters. So lots of hill climb racers do lots of bonkers things, running rim brakes, running track tubs, chopping handlebars, running carbon saddles that don't look comfortable at all. Well, I mean, it's called a struggle, so it's not going to be comfortable. Anyway, let's go and find some wild stuff. Okay, we've got a super special bike here. We have got Andrew Feather's Cannondale Lab 71 SuperSix Evo. So Lab 71 is Cannondale's like super duper, highly technical term there. It's a different layup, slightly different carbon, very different paint. I mean, it's quite hard to see in the carbon, in the flesh if you like, but effectively it's a really hyper light paint, so it's not really a paint. So yeah, it starts with a very light frame and then they've made it a little bit lighter. Andrew spec'd it with a unique 1x drivetrain, so dual race 12 speed, but with a non-narrow wide front chainring with the carbon rotor Alpe cranks. The iconic no bar tape setup for Andrew Feather. He's using Schmalk now for stem and bar with a very cool, very trick little out front camera mount. Wheels also worth a note. These are Hunt tubs. I think they're climber models. They're ultra light. So we've got a really slimmed down, minuscule little front hub paired with some carbon spokes. The second wheel set that we've seen with the carbon spokes, they're pretty wild to be fair. And then a quite shallow but still aero rim profile. Really good example of the weight weenie levels that Andrew Feather goes to is these lights. So they're essentially an ultra small LED with the tabs that you would use to kind of weld them to a circuit board still attached, the really long tail ones, and you just pop in a small pill battery, but it's the lightest rear light that you can buy, full stop. Feather's gone for tubs. We'll get the calipers out in a little bit and measure how big they are. But he reckons they're about 23. So a really big width difference from what some of the other racers were riding on the hill climb. He's running them at quite a low pressure. I think the pressure is too low to be revealed, but it's below 60. So that's probably like half what these track tubs were originally designed to. But for these guys, every sort of 100 grams that they can save on the bike is probably about a second on this climb at the really elite level for the men and women. So that's why they go into these extraordinary gains of using something that's designed literally to go round in circles on wood out on one of the gnarliest climbs in the UK. Okay, now we're getting deep and nerdy is the best description. So we've got a fantastic example of a UK hill climb bike here. So it kind of looks normal when you first look at it, and then slowly little bits start shouting at you. So first we've got 1x, we've got an exceedingly small chainring, but that means we can run an exceedingly small or normal for road rear block. We've got a really heavily waxed chain, so that should be nice and grippy. Next, sort of little features that pop out. Well, what else have we got? We've got cables again. Remember them? So we've got an older SRAM Red group set, which from memory is about 1 kilo lighter than the new stuff, which is pretty wild. It does run on cables versus electronics. It's got only one shifter set up, but that's because we've only got 1x. Next kind of unique feature is these wild rim brakes. So they're a carbon composite assembly. Looks like a single pivot. I think it might be dual pivot, but they look super light. We've got carbon tubs. We've got super light Veloflex tyres. All of which, I mean, they're basically track tyres. So not something you'd normally run on the road, but maximum weight saving. It's perfect. Other fun features, carbon basically everything, including the saddle. But a nice nod to being safe. And actually, it's a rule here at the hill climb, is that you've got to have lights front and rear. We'll get the bike on the scales. It's pretty wild looking, to be fair. Okay, now we're getting to some wonderful exotic stuff. This is a Cannondale SuperSix Evo. It's actually the black ink edition, so it saves even more. I think a couple of 100 grams over the stock super light frame anyway. We've got lots of really high-end carbon components, including the MCK stem and bar, Schmalker seat post and saddle. I mean, probably the trickiest thing is these hand-built wheels by ZED or Z. They're using, well, string for spokes. Don't worry, they're under tension. They are very, very light, really low-profile carbon rims. We've got Continental tubs. It is really incredibly light. Really nice standout feature though is it's got a double on, so you could use it as a normal bike. It's also got these Cane Creek EE brakes, and unlike some of the other kind of like super light CNC'd brakes, rim brakes that are out there, these ones aren't just a single pivot, they're actually a multi-link setup, so they've actually got a lot of power. So not that you'll need that on the climbs. They're also super light too, so a pair of these EE Cane Creek brakes weigh the same as, I think, one dual race rim brake caliper, so they are really, really light. I think this build is probably going to be our lights of the day, so let's get the scales out. Well, it's called the struggle because the hill is horribly steep, but also look at this surface. We've got green moss. It's a really damp day here in the Lake District as well, in Ambleside. It's going to be really slippy, so we're going to have to look at tyre choice and work out what works. What do you think works? So we've just measured up these tyres on Ed Laverack's bike, and whilst they're listed as 25s, they actually measure up as 28s. I think that's down to the quite wide rim profile. And as I was looking at the rim profile, it's a wonderful carbon rim. I was looking at the really nice machined hub. We've also got carbon spokes here, so these wheels are going to be super light. I think they're really going to help keep the weight down, and those big tyres will keep at low pressure, will really help get all the watts down on the hill. This could really well be the fastest bike this weekend. Retro, we're getting ultra techy. This is an awesome hill climb bike. It's a Swift Carbon Ultravox. It's been fully stripped down and then repainted with a custom paint job that tells a life story of the rider. Loads and loads of fun details, including Starship Enterprise on there. So hopefully it's a rocket ship on the climb as well. In terms of nerdy tech, it's a rim brake bike, so that's quite nerdy and a little bit rare these days. It's got Cole carbon wheels with quite unique hubs from Cole, whereby the spokes are laced into a little sort of like brass nut that's in the hub. So that's quite interesting. The evergreen dual race dual pivot brakes, so actually quite powerful for just a rim brake. Also, really good tech is we're running a Di2 setup, but with a GRX rear mech. So that means that we can get away with a 32-32 bottom gear, so 1-to-1, which on this climb I think he'll need. 1-by drivetrain, so using rotor cranks, which again, you don't see every day. What you definitely don't see every day, especially on a road bike, is a Hope chainring. This is a narrow wide setup, so it means he can do without having any chain retention, because that narrow wide profile of the chain should help secure it on, even at the kind of extremes of a 1-by drivetrain. Other nice kind of hill climb specific features, we've got the classic no bar tape, save a few grams there. We've also got carbon post and also a full carbon saddle, so rails and shell. I'm going to say it doesn't look very comfortable for a hill climb. I think none of it's comfortable. Okay, we've got a bit of an iconic bike here. We've got a CAAD12. So it's aluminium, and you might go, well, why is that interesting and why is that useful at a hill climb? Well, I mean, effectively, it's a fairly standard setup. We've got a double, we've got a 2x11 Ultegra, we've got no bar tape as the stock feature here at hill climb. But the reason why we're showing it is because this bike was bought second-hand, 600 quid. Admittedly, there was about 200 quid paid afterwards to get it up to spec and ready, but I reckon that could be the cheapest hill climb bike here. In terms of hill climb specialist equipment, we've got some nice tan wall tyres, they are clinchers. Apart from that, it's fairly stock, but you don't have to blow the budget to go hill climbing. So yeah, awesome bike and metal. Okay, we've got another very nice bike here, relatively stock. It's beeping at me. So it looks like a Planet X, looks like a Planet X Mondo, and technically it is a Planet X Mondo, but Planet X did some very limited edition bikes with an amazing Italian custom builder called Sato. So this is like a Planet X, but it's handmade in Italy by Sato. So very, very nice frame. We've got some very narrow and low profile carbon tubs, but previously the owner was telling me it did have 23mm tubs on, but he squeezed in some 28s, huge by hill climb standards, but purely because the road here is so slippery. So he'll be able to run these at lower pressure and get better grip. Other nice features are rim brakes again, classic for the hill climb, carbon post, carbon saddle. Shockingly though, we actually have got bar tape on this bike. Power meter as well, lots of nice little details, but yeah, nice to see a custom carbon bike here. It's not a dedicated hill climb bike, but it's exceedingly pretty and pretty light as well. It is a Time Alpe d'Huez, so using their clever resin transfer technology to make the frame as smooth on the inside as it is on the outside. Not that we can tell. Only modifications for the hill climb here is we've got lights, and we've also taken off bottle cages. I say we, I haven't, the owner has, who was here just on holiday in Rabbit Ears, and he's just doing the hill climb just for fun. I'm not sure you do hill climbs for fun. Other specs on it, well, it's fairly stock. We've even got a double, but I think on today's hill, I think the double might be for the win. Wow, I mean, my mind is blown. I never thought I'd see track tubs out on the road, let alone a really rough bit of tarmac called the Struggle. I mean, thanks very much for watching all the way through. What were your highlights? Have you got any wild tips for hill climbs, apart from maybe using an e-bike? Let us know in the comments below.